Sorry, I missed that, Ben.
Sorry, I was just asking my colleague to start the live
All
stream.
right, okay, thank you.
So hopefully it's all good now.
Good. So welcome everyone to the Governance and Audit Committee meeting on the 30th of January. This is a virtual meeting and unfortunately we're not permitted to hold virtual formal committee meetings at this time. The regulations permitting this earlier in the pandemic actually expired May 2021 and haven't been renewed by government. So the meeting today is an informal consultative meeting of the committee. However, it is being live streamed to enable public and stakeholders to observe and hear the debate and discussions, and the papers have been published in the usual way. If there is a need for a formal decision on an item, it would be necessary for the Managing Director to exercise his delegated authority and subsequently take those decisions, having regard to the recommendations of this meeting. Are we all comfortable with that? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Can I just confirm we've got Councillor Hinchcliffe who sent apologies. Anybody else, Ben?
I think Councillor Swift will have sent his apologies, and Councillor Scullion's here as his substitute this morning.
Lovely. And could you just do a roll call so we've got a record of who is on at the meeting, please?
Oh, sure thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. We've got Bronwyn Baker from the Combined Authority. We've got Mark Dalton from Mazars, Angela Taylor, Director of Corporate Services at the Combined Authority, Ben Still, Managing Director of the Combined Authority, Joe Wadman, Independent Member of the Governance and Audit Committee, Councillor Scullion, substituting for Councillor Swift as a member of the Governance and Audit Committee. We've got Councillor Robertson, Councillor Pandor, both members of the committee, and Craig Taylor from the Combined Authority.
That's lovely, thank you. Okay, so agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest they wish to declare in relation to any of the items on the agenda? No, looking around and I can't see anybody. Okay, thank you. So if the Government Services Officer can record that, please, in the minutes. Item 3 is exclusions of the press and public. As far as I'm aware, there are no items on the agenda which require the exemption of the press and public. Can I just check that still remains true?
Yep, that's correct, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so agenda item 4 is to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee held on the 30th of September 2021. If we can do a page turn on this then, please. So any comments or questions on page 1? No. Page 2 and page 3.
Yeah, I think Mark Dalton was signalling.
I was indeed, thanks, Ben. Chair,
Thanks,
just
Mark.
a really simple one, if I may. It's on the first page.
Yeah.
And those present seems to indicate that Mark Outerside is a member of the committee rather than just in attendance.
Right, okay, so we can get that altered. Thank you for that. Any other comments? No, Mark, your hand's still up. Is that just historic? Yeah, lovely, thank you. Good. Okay, so as this is an informal meeting, can members please confirm that they're in agreement to note the minutes as an accurate record to be approved at the next formal meeting of the committee? Yeah. Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So moving on to item 5. Item 5 is to consider the internal audit progress report. And the officer lead on this is Bronwyn Baker. It's a standard agenda item, but for this meeting, it's supplemented with the proposed audit charter for the next financial year, which is 2022-2023. So can we take each of these in turn, please, and start with consideration of progress against the governance and audit plan? And if I can invite the lead officer to draw our attention to anything of particular significance, please. And could you also address the point about the current resource constraints?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll take the papers as read and move to questions very quickly. But on the resource issue, we are On our third round of advertising, we are desperately struggling to fill the posts. So this is an ongoing issue, but we are working very closely with our HR team to try and look at whether there are other opportunities to make the roles more attractive, either through the way in which we're advertising them, or to look at potentially increasing the spine points that we offer the starting salary at. So those are all discussions that are underway across all the roles that are out for advert at the moment. So it is a significant issue for us, and it does mean that we have not been able to bring as many completed reports to this committee as we would have liked. However, there are quite a number of reports underway at the moment, and we have some very clear plans for how we're going to deliver the remainder of the plan for this year. So I'm confident we will do enough to be able to give a full opinion come the end of the year. We will no doubt roll over a few reviews into April, which is fairly standard practice for audit, but we have a very clear plan for how we're going to do that. So I can give the committee the assurance that at this point, I don't think there's any suggestion that we would need to limit the opinion because of scope, because of the range of audits that we've done. But it is dependent on, of course, our resources, on us not losing any more resource at this point. So I'm ever hopeful that no one else hands in their resignation or goes off sick. So I remain your optimistic head of audit. In terms of the rest of the progress update, I'm very happy to take questions because I'm hoping they are fairly self-explanatory, but very happy to deal with specific concerns or questions.
Thank you, Bron. So can we have Councillor Scullion and then Joe Wardenham, please? I think you both got. Oh, Joe, your hand went down. It's still up? Yeah. Yeah, lovely. So Councillor Scullion first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Comment more than a question, and I think the committee probably recognised from our own organisational experiences that recruitment is particularly difficult at the moment, and certainly in my council we're seeing an increase, for example, in people of retirement age choosing to leave. I think the pandemic, the last 2 years, has been hard on all of us really, and I accept that efforts are being made to try and fill those gaps. I just wanted to comment on page 22 in terms of the client feedback narrative examples that have been given. Actually, they are very positive, they are very good, and I think it does show that the quality of the work is maintained during this difficult period. So I wanted to say well done to the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe.
Thank you, Chair. It's just really an observation around the resourcing issue. Government Internal Audit Agency, we're also struggling to recruit at the senior audit level. And it's just in relation to, you mentioned pay, our starting salary for our staff based in Leeds is 39,000. And I noted you've got a current advert at the moment, and that's 36 is the starting salary. So it's just really to highlight that there are other opportunities out there for people with the qualifications that you're looking for, you know, on a significantly higher salary.
And I completely take the point. We do have plans this year to look at the design and the structure of the team. We are, as a lot of other areas in the Combined Authority, looking to make sure that we are not just addressing the resource issues for now, but we are aiming to bring good people in, to retain them long term. So there is an organisational design piece that we are currently working on at the moment. So, you know, when I say we are looking at every way in which we can address this now and for the future, that is absolutely what we are busy doing at the moment. So we will report back to this committee as that progresses, and any potential changes to structure, grade, salary, etc. we will report back.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions from the Internal Audit Progress Report that hopefully Bron can help shed a little bit of light on. The RAG rating that's going on. So some of the items are classed as green because they're reasonable, but many of the others don't have a rating at all attached to them. And given some of the progress against them, should they be amber or red, or is it that there just has not been any progress and it would be unfair to make them amber or red at this stage. The second question that I hope Bron can help with is around cybersecurity. It's the top risk on that. Do we actually need to put some rocket boosters behind that and prioritize that a little bit more to make sure we're making adequate progress, particularly as there is increased reliance on digital and cyber, not just for the combined authority, but our partner agencies too?
Those are both really, really good points. In terms of the opinion ratings on the remainder of the work, they will actually become clear as we complete the audit pieces. So it's not that there's a suggestion that those are not rated because things are not as they should be. It's simply because we haven't given an opinion yet. So you will see those populated. We were hoping to have considerably more populated at this point, but for the reasons we've already outlined, we are running somewhat behind on that. However, where we do bring reports that have got more significant issues, you will get the summaries of those reports and we can dive into those in more detail. So hopefully that will give you assurance that both the ratings are right, but that the action is being taken to address those by the organisation. So you will see more colour in that, hopefully at the next meeting, and if not, that's certainly the one after. On the second point about cybersecurity, you are absolutely right. And one of the areas for ICT review that we've prioritised this year is just that. And we are currently contracting with an ICT specialist company to come and do a review of vulnerability management, which is cybersecurity by any other name, and also to do a piece of work on our integrated corporate system, which is described in the paper as one of the most significant projects that we've got ongoing for the remainder of this financial year and for the next financial year. It's going to make a huge difference to our controls around our HR, finance, payroll systems. So we're getting an early review in on that to make sure that the implementation phase has been correctly set up, hopefully addressing any concerns the auditors might have before we actually get hugely underway on that project. So both things that you're quite right to point out and that are very much on our agenda for the remainder of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
I think my hand's down now, Chair.
It's gone down. Oh, I can still see a little hand waving at me there.
Sorry,
So
it must have been
don't worry.
Yeah, it must have been a legacy hand. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. I've got a couple of questions, please. One is on page 11 about the health and safety report. It recommends that health and safety visits are started again. But if they're being started again, how did we gain assurance in the first place that everything was all right?
So the health and safety team have not been covering those. They've been doing them remotely. So basically they've been speaking remotely with the teams out in our frontline services, etc., to do those reviews in that way. We were hoping that they would be kickstarting them again in person, but at the moment we are still trying to keep people working at home wherever that's possible, so they're continuing to do those remotely. But they've not ceased, they've not been done, it's just the method that's been employed. So we should see that starting to come back on into the normal way of doing things.
That's lovely, thank you. And my other query was, what's the criteria for prioritising and removing work from the schedule? Because there is a piece of work that's been dropped, isn't there? Yes,
so it's really about whether that is still one of the most current risks that we're facing. And in going through the plan to look at where we could curtail some of the work for this year, either taking it forward into next year or taking it off the plan for now, it's been against a risk-based assessment.
Okay.
We had some insolvency issues, for example. That's one of the ones that we took off the plan. We had some insolvency issues in the previous plan year. We were going to look at the systems for that, but to be honest, it's just not as big a priority as something like cybersecurity. So we're just cutting the cloth accordingly, I think is the right expression.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Councillor Pandor? No? I have a hand waving there at me somewhere around that part of the screen, but...
No, the first time it was a thumbs up.
No. Yes.
No. Yeah, the thumbs up was to say the minutes are okay.
Lovely, thank you.
If I want to put my hand up, I'll go like this. I'll show you. There, can you see that little hand?
Oh, you see, it's moved again on my screen. Never mind.
And if I think something's funny, I'll go like this. Anyway.
Lovely, thank you, everybody. Any other questions from anybody or comments? No, thank you. I think it'd be useful if we could have an update on the cybersecurity and the recruitment at the next session, if we could, please. And if we can recall that the committee's considered and noted the internal audit progress. Thank you. And the second part of this agenda item is to consider and recommend approval of the draft audit charter with any amendments or changes that members would like to suggest. The charter hasn't been amended since the last version, and that was significantly redrafted following recommendations from external quality assessment. So could the lead officer just take us through anything they want to draw our attention to, or anything we should be considering with this, please?
So the only small change that was made to this report was the name of the Commercial and Corporate Services Directorate. We used to be Corporate Services and we're now Corporate Commercial Services. So that's the one change that has been made to the document. Other than that, this very much reflects the progress against our quality improvement plan, which again was also significantly reconsidered after the external quality assessment. So we're content that this describes correctly the way we are currently working and the way in which we are governing the service effectively. So there's nothing that I think is of significance or something that we are not currently meeting or dealing with either through our quality improvement plan or through our standard processes and procedures. So I haven't got anything to highlight. I'm very happy to take any questions or any suggestions if anybody does think there is something that we're not currently covering in the charter that we should.
Any questions from anybody or comments or suggestions? No? Okay, so if we can formally note the committee's considered the draft audit charter, and can I check that everybody is happy to recommend it for approval? Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 6. This is the external audit progress report. I'd like to welcome Mark Dalton from Mazars, who's here to support this item. This is a standard agenda item where we ask officers to provide an update on any external audit matters that have occurred since the last meeting. But on this occasion, the main purpose of the paper is to consider the options for reappointment of external auditors. And we've got 2 options on the table. Firstly is to continue to opt into the PSAA-led national scheme in line with most local authorities. The second option is for the CA to undertake its own independent procurement exercise. So could I again ask Angela, please, as the officer lead, to take us through this paper?
Thank you, Chair. You've done a very good job there of introducing it and setting out the issues. We've provided quite a bit of detail in there about the process PSAA have gone through to learn from the first round of doing this process. You will recall we obviously opted in first time. I think all our local authorities did as well. It does, as the report sets out, that some of the benefits that PSAA are reporting back to us around the sort of economies of scale, the efficiencies, the coordination across the whole audit piece. They're set out in the report. There's clearly a huge amount of work for us to do if we wish to do it ourselves, but that if members want us to recommend that to the combined authority, we can do so. You're being asked today to make a recommendation that will have to go forward to the combined authority. This is one of the matters that is reserved to, in quote, full council, which for us, this does need to be a combined authority decision, but they will very much be led and informed by the conversation we're having here and now. So there's quite a lot of information in the report. I won't dwell on it, but absolutely happy to take any questions on it. I appreciate Mark is here on the call. He's probably slightly conflicted in some of this in terms of what he may or may not be able to say on this, but I'm sure if members do want to view it all from external audit, we'll see what Mark feels comfortable sharing in this forum. But we are, we've set this out. I think our officer recommendation would be that we continue down the PSAA route. Would flag, we know the external audit world has not been without its difficulties, particularly in the past year. I think you're probably all aware of delays on a lot of audit work. We have been, I'm not sure, fortunate or just well organised, or a combination of all factors. We've been very well placed, and we've just about hit all our deadlines this year. The process has worked well for us to date, but I'll leave it there. I'll think it's probably, if members want to pick up on any of the points in this report, ask any further questions. And I can see a couple of hands already.
Yeah, thank you. So to start, Councillor Scullion, please.
Thank you, Chair. There are two options in front of us in terms of making a recommendation to the combined authority. And to be quite honest, I cannot see why we would not want to continue to opt in to the PSAA arrangement. I think the arguments for taking the other option of going our own way, I cannot really see that they're there in this particular case. So I would strongly recommend that we follow the officer's recommendations and opt into the PSAA.
Thank you. Mark, your hand's up.
Yeah, it was just really quickly, Chair, to offer a little bit of additional context, which might be helpful for the committee. And I'm absolutely not conflicted in any way, shape or form. Whichever direction you take, we would be interested in bidding to retain your audit anyway. But the context I wanted to add is that over 95% of all local government bodies opted in last time. The information I'm hearing is that that percentage is likely to increase even closer to 100% of all local government bodies. And as I say, I think the paper stands for itself. I think it's been both introduced nicely by the Chair and by Angela, but just wanted to add that little bit of extra context.
Thank you. Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, happy to support the recommendations. I think Councillor Scullion said everything I needed to say. Happy to support the report.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the paper? No, I can't see any. Okay, so thank you. So the committee has been asked to agree recommendation to the combined authority for the future appointment of external auditors using the PSAA scheme. So can I confirm we're all in agreement to the recommendation? Thank you. So can we note that we've agreed to that? Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 7. This is the annual audit report for the financial year 2020-2021, and this includes the audit certificate and the value for money opinion from the external auditor. The annual audit report was circulated to members on Tuesday. Can I check that everybody did receive that? Yeah, good, thank you. So the report's presented to the committee for consideration. And this will conclude the external audit matters for the 2020-2021 accounts. So Angela, can I invite you and Mazars to highlight any significant points, please?
Thank you. I'll start with a minor correction to the paper. I think at the time we drafted it, we understood this would bring everything to a conclusion. The tiny piece that is outstanding that I think is drawn out in Mark's report, which will take us through, is that the whole of government accounts, it's not been formally confirmed that we do not need to form part of that. We don't believe we do, but that's not been formally confirmed. And unfortunately, until government, the National Audit Office, whoever it is, confirm that that's required or not, we technically cannot conclude the whole of the audit. However, if we work on the basis that the whole of government accounts will again not be required from us, then all the work is substantively done. The report sets out that there was a little delay to it, hence the paper came out slightly late, but you have all got a copy of that. I think it's probably most helpful if we ask Mark to explain what is in that paper and the conclusions in there, which you will hopefully have seen and are largely a very positive outcome to this piece of work. So I suspect that's probably best if we ask Mark to take us through that paper.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to take us through?
Happy to, Chair. Yep. Thanks, Angela, for that introduction. So, yeah, thank you, Chair. This is our new style auditor's annual report, which under the new Code of Audit Practice for 2021 and has trailed a number of times throughout the year, replaces the annual audit letter that the committee will have received in the recent past. The report, which has been discussed and agreed with management, provides a summary of the work we've undertaken as your external auditors for the year ending 31st of March 21. And it confirms that following the last Governance and Audit Committee that we did on the 4th of October, issue a clean, unqualified opinion on your financial statements. It also includes our new style value for money commentary. That's on pages 9 to 12. And that's covering your arrangements, or our commentary on your arrangements, against the 3 specified reporting criteria of financial sustainability, governance, and also improving the 3 E's. The committee will be pleased to know on page 8 of our report that we did not identify any significant weaknesses in arrangements at Wicker, which is a good outcome. And I would echo Angela's points that overall the auditor's annual report is a positive report. As Angela said, the report does highlight on page 14 that we've not yet received confirmation from the NEO that there's no further work for us to do in relation to whole of government accounts. And again, as Angela says, that prevents us at this time from issuing our audit certificate, which formally marks the closure of the 2021 audit. We do expect to receive those instructions later this month, and we will very quickly thereafter hopefully be able to issue that audit certificate. On page 15 of our report, we highlight the fees for our work. Those fees are very much in line with those proposed within the Audit Strategy Memorandum that we presented to the March Governance and Audit Committee. The fees, as you would expect, have been discussed, challenged, agreed with management, and it is worth noting that the variations are entirely linked to national or sector-wide issues, rather in any way, shape or form being about the quality of your local accounts. It's also worth noting that the government, in recognition of the upward pressure on external audit fees, has made an additional £15 million available to local government bodies. It's also made a commitment actually to make that same £15 million available for the next 3 years to help you meet those additional costs. The report is designed actually to be read by a wider audience, really members of the public, and we would encourage the authority to make it available on its website. I'll stop there, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Yes, Councillor Robinson.
I think it's just one for Mark to his last point, and it might be for Angela to come in. So if members of the public are having a look at this and they want to question any of this or have got thoughts that they wish to add in, how do we capture that then from here? Because I would agree with you. I think we should make it so that the public can engage with this, but there should be a process to be able to do that.
Shall I take that, Angela?
I'll let you start while I think of my answer, if I may.
Lovely, lovely. So in a sense, this is a report which is for the public's information, and they have a limited opportunity in a sense to formally comment on it. Having said that, there is an inspection period where the public have an opportunity, a 30-day period, to ask questions of the auditor and in fact of management in relation to the financial statements and any item of account therein. That is advertised by the authority and was actually done back, I think, in July or August 2021. So I'd like to say members of the public have had an opportunity, as I said, to feed into the audit of the financial statements, but this document itself is mainly reporting the outcome of our work for the year 2021.
Thank you. Angela, did you want to come back on that?
I just confirm what Mark said. We always follow the requirement to advertise the draft account. It's not quite the point that Councillor Robinson is saying, that there's not a formal routine for members of the public to comment on this, but I'm just debating whether this is actually on our website anywhere. I think it's only available through these papers at the moment, but we can look if there's merit in putting more of this information on our transparency pages on our website. So it's there if people want to go looking rather than digging through governance. I don't think many members of the public will find it easy to find the nugget they want from within all of our papers. So we'll take that away and have a look at it. But rest assured, we will be advertising the accounts for inspection in line with the regulations in the early summer again.
Thank you. Can I ask you to just update us at the next meeting where you are with that? Because I've seen a lot of nods of agreement to that suggestion. Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah. In terms of the report itself, it's good to hear that there's no significant weaknesses in the areas considered: governance, financial sustainability, economic efficiency and effectiveness. And I think the purpose of the report and our role, I think I'm really pleased that the report has been done in a very robust manner. Due diligence has been applied, and if any of my constituents come to me, I will be able to stand up and vouch that yes, everything is in order. So I think I've got a role to play as well to actually go forward and to my constituents, certainly, especially in counties and beyond, to actually provide that assurance. So although this committee's got a very clear role, as elected members, I think we need to actually go and communicate that as well wherever we can. Just an observation, Chair, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, lovely. Okay, so the committee was asked to consider this report. So if there are no further comments, can we just please note that the committee has considered the report? Thank you. Okay, agenda item 8. So this is compliance and monitoring. And again, this is a standard item to provide information and assurance on all governance matters. There are essentially 3 parts to this paper. So firstly, to consider changes to the arrangements for internal audit control in a combined authority since the last meeting. Second is to endorse the Treasury management statement, strategy and reserves policy prior to its consideration by the combined authority. And then the third part is the corporate risk update. So if we can take these sections one at a time, please, just to ensure we give each one full consideration. And if we can start with the report considering any changes to internal controls. I believe there haven't been any significant changes, but can I just invite the lead officer to confirm this and draw our attention to anything in the paper?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, as stated, this is a sort of negative positive that there have been no significant changes. I have just flagged that we have, and the head of finance retired in November, and so there's obviously a number of things. That post holder is deputy to me. We have put arrangements in place to cover that. So we've tweaked around the controls in place to make sure none of those have disappeared or got lost in the time between his retirement and the post holder starting with us next week. But no changes of any significance to note and no failures of internal control.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from anybody? No, thank you. So if you can please note the committee's considered the reports and there have been no changes to arrangements since the last meeting. So the second part we can turn our attention to is consideration of the Treasury management statement, strategy and reserves policy. And I believe that encompasses a whole organisation following the PCC transferring in. So could again ask the lead officer to take us through any key points within that.
I will, thank you. So there are sort of 2 parts of Treasury management. You've asked previously to be advised of what is happening in the Treasury management world. And we meet quarterly with our advisors. And as with last month, the meeting is the same day as this meeting. So we're slightly out of kilter. The last meeting was 3 months ago. We meet this afternoon, but there were no issues of concern there. But what we have been doing with our advisors and those who are supporting on the policing side is we have put together a revised Treasury management statement and strategy that needs to go with our budget paper in February. And I think it's set out under paragraph 219 in the paper. It's been an interesting, slightly technical exercise to bring together a Treasury management statement that is required to encompass the combined authority's responsibilities for Treasury management, but recognising decision-making for policing is different to decision-making for non-policing. So the Treasury management statement has been, we've worked with West Yorkshire Police. They have their existing Treasury management arrangements that we are now part of helping to monitor and manage. And there is a statement attached as Appendix 5, I think, in the paper. So it sets out, in effect, the picture of the requirements to comply with the Treasury arrangements across the whole combined authority portfolio. And then within that, there are two parts to it, one for the police, one for the non-policing side of things. I do appreciate some of this gets quite technical, particularly the appendices. We are following the rules guidance and the updated rules actually from SIPFA. And we have in previous years done a bit of a session with members around Treasury management, where we've brought in our advisors to help share with the committee the sorts of things you should be looking for, how to support you in your responsibilities. We last did that I think just under a year ago. There was a request last time to do that in the first part of this year. We weren't able to arrange it for this meeting, primarily because of budget pressures on all the staff across everybody working on these matters, but we will look to put that in place for your March meeting. And that's probably, I appreciate it. It's a bit of chicken and egg, but that will help probably help explain some of the indicators that we will be looking at to monitor the statement and strategy. What I would say is it's not changed, although we've had to make it work for both organisations, it's not fundamentally changed. We still continue with the focus on security of our funding. This is about our cash money, this is about our cash balances, this is about the money we have coming in and out, and how we make sure that that is properly looked after. And we are not seeking to invest it in a way that might generate a return but would lose the money. This is very much being done in with a very low risk appetite, in line with the approach taken in all our local authorities. This is cash we need. It tends to be, our cash balances tend to accrue because it is money paid in advance, often capital grants that come from government that we don't need to, we're not ready to spend yet, but we need to know the money is there when we do come to spend it. So the money is largely placed, as it has been in all previous years, out with local authorities, it's out with very high rated institutions, so that it goes out to them for a number of months in accordance with policy, and it comes back to us with a little bit of interest added on, but it comes back to us, and that is the key point around it. So happy to take questions on any aspect of Treasury management. I have reflected in the report that we are looking to pull together the two sets of Treasury management arrangements. There were arrangements in place at the start of the year for the non-policing side, i.e. what was the combined authority's responsibility, and the police and the then OPCC had their Treasury management arrangements. We are now managing both, and we're looking to bring the two together because that makes more sense, but we just need to go through the process to do that properly.
Thank you. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. I think the intended process of bringing the two together is absolutely right, as set out in 2.7 and 2.8 within the report. And it was quite interesting to see the activity in terms of the police, West Yorkshire police side in table 5. But I think some of the previous discussions at this committee about Treasury management were not about the approach to Treasury management or the reserves policy or that sort of detail particularly, but much more about us as a committee having sufficient background and understanding of the policing side, which we hadn't previously considered, so as to be able to interrogate and understand that side of the work, really. So it wasn't so much just an introduction to Treasury management and how we manage cash flow and yield and so on, but very much about understanding that merger so that we could properly carry out our duties as a committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to come back on that, Angela?
I think that's a very good prompt there, Councillor Scullion, and can I suggest we'll draw that out when we do the session in March and make sure we're very clear about where those responsibilities begin and end in terms of the two different parts of it, because it's a very good question and one that causes us, it does cause challenge, it doesn't, it needs some careful thinking through. So we'll pick that up for you.
Can I just check on that, Councillor Scullion? Was it about the mechanisms that sit behind it as well as just where the boundaries lay? So was it a bit wider than that, I was hearing?
I think it was wider in terms of just improving our understanding, really, of that side of the work. You know, we might feel we're steeped in detail about audits of the transport side and the yellow buses and those kind of things. So I know I'm a substitute, but I think we feel perhaps maybe the rest of the committee more informed than me, but just in terms of language differences, historic information, committee differences, and so on. So it was the wider approach, really. But I think Angela did actually cover that in her response, really. I think she understands that.
What we're after. Lovely. Okay, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thanks, Chair. On a similar line to Councillor Scullion on this, I think at the moment, obviously, it sits between Leeds City Council and Wakefield City Council, the Treasury management of these. I believe in the report it says it will be one of that does this in the future. So what is the timescale for drawing that across? Because it is complicated. And are we saying that it'll be by this time next year because we can want to do it in line with having some full accounts, or is there a different timeline on this altogether?
We are hoping to do it in the next few months, if we can. The two services provided are slightly different, so we just need to make sure we capture what's being provided at the moment and that we don't lose anything in drawing them together. But we will be looking to one of our local authorities to support that process in terms of who continues to do the work going forward.
That's useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, okay, so it sounds like we've got a piece of work to follow up around the policing side of things. But other than that, the recommendation is for members to endorse the Treasury management statement and strategy and the reserves policy prior to their consideration by the combined authority. So can I check that all members are confirmed that they support this endorsement? Yeah, lovely, thank you. So can we record the decision, please? Have any members any particular views they want to be formally recorded around this? No, thank you.
I think Councillor Robinson has his. Sorry,
Councillor Robinson.
No, don't worry, Chair. It was just on that Treasury management side, the reserves. A question on the reserves. So a point of clarification that was required. Often the local authorities will have a percentage of their budget assigned to reserves or are used as a KPI on this. Is there something similar for the combined authority? I couldn't find it within the report.
That's a question that comes forward quite often. There is a sort of broad benchmark around 5% as a sort of starting point, but the bit that needs layering in is that's a ballpark and is a starting point, and it is about a risk approach to reserves. So it is trying to dissect our different areas of spend to determine if there is a higher level of risk attached to them. So, for example, the turmoil that faces the bus industry, 5% feels too low, so we've nudged that one upwards this year. What I would also say is the combined authorities historically had a level of general reserves. It's had very little in the way of earmarked reserves other than some of the technical accounting ones. We did start, following a question from the Finance Resources Committee, we have started looking across at the practices of the 5 local authorities. They have an awful lot more earmarked reserves to cover particular things that crop up, and that's not something we've done. So we are looking at whether we should do that more to be more transparent about where the risk sits and how we are managing it. We did take the combined authority in December the potential need for a transport reserve on top of the transport fund reserve that we've got, but just generally where if we have any savings currently against in the temporary arrangements we have on paying bus operators, that we capture any savings to release them next year or the year after when the going gets particularly tough around the bus industry. But I think it's probably something we need to develop a bit more over next year. We are trying to draw together a bit of a comparison of all the authorities and see where our reserves position looks in comparison to them. We have historically been under some pressure not to build up levels of reserves beyond what we need, because that's potentially a drain on local authority resources, and we don't want to do that, but we don't want to leave ourselves short either.
I guess it prompts a further question, which is then at 10.2 mil, is that 5%? That's the sort of ballpark figure or in terms of percentage, and a question for the chair, which is when that process is underway of that work with the other authorities, is it useful for it to come back to us just to have a sight of it?
Yes, I would definitely endorse that suggestion. I think that'd be very useful.
And to answer to the question, it is higher than 5%, but that's because we're reflecting some areas feel riskier than that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's make sure I haven't missed anybody else. No. Okay, so I think it's still happy to, members still happy to support the endorsements. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, the final part of agenda item 8 is the risk update. It looks pretty stable since last time, but again, Angela, could I just ask you, is there anything that we need to note in particular on there?
Yeah, thank you. We had we had quite a discussion about risk at previous meeting, and I have noted in here some of the feedback we had, which we need to make some progress on. We have had a bit of change in the staffing within the transformation performance team, and some a new person starting there in next month, who will be leading a bit of a revisit of some of our risk management arrangements to make sure that they are as good as we want them to be. What you've got attached as the appendix is the latest version of the risk register, and I said that there are some comments in the report where I know you've asked for a bit more about direction of travel, about how long they've been on the register, etc. So we will pick up that work with the new person once they're in post next month. They are at a strategic level. The risks don't change a huge amount. What does change probably is some of the mitigations, some of the actions that we are taking in response to them. Just to confirm from the earlier conversation, the internal audit, cybersecurity is one of those risks. So Bron and team are picking it up in terms of auditing it, but it is very much there on our risk register, and the ICT team are actively doing work to ensure our cybersecurity defences are where they should be. So the risk register is as at December. We are obviously in the middle of doing a business plan for next year. It is that time of year where we're planning, thinking about what's coming up. So I think we will be looking again at the risk register in the context of, does this reflect the risks of the combined authority and its business plan as being formulated for next year, and does anything need changing? But sadly, many of these things continue, the funding issues. I don't think cybersecurity will ever go off the list, no matter how good our controls. It's one of those things, if it goes wrong once, it can be catastrophic. So we would hope to get the likelihood down as low as possible, but the impact will always remain critical. Similarly on a number of other items, but happy to take any comments now, but advise that we will try and do a more thorough piece on risk in the first half of the year.
Thank you. Any questions? No, a question, I suppose, for the members from me. I'd be quite keen, seeing as the risks don't change very much, and it really is a mitigation that lowers the risk level that we have. I was quite keen to get some of the risk owners to talk to us a bit more about the sorts of measures that they're putting in place to mitigate the risks. And I just wondered if there'd be support for that. Yeah. Okay. Is that something we can have a look at then, do you think, moving forward?
Absolutely. We'll do that.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So if there are no questions, can we just make a note that the committee has considered the risk update, please? Thank you. So agenda item 9 is ethical governance changes. Following guidance issued by the Local Government Association, the monitoring officer has reviewed the combined authorities' procedure for considering complaints that allege a failure to comply with the Members' Code of Conduct, and the proposed revisions are to provide greater clarity and transparency to the process. So this draft update is presented to the committee for consideration, and the lead officer is seeking a recommendation from the committee to the combined authority that the revised process is adopted. I think you'll see the main changes set out at item 2.3 in this report. But could I ask the lead officer on this one, please, Caroline Allen, to take us through anything of particular note?
Thank you very much, Chair. And for those of you that I haven't met before, my name is Caroline Allen. I'm the Head of Legal and Governance here at the Combined Authority and also the Monitoring Officer. So thank you for considering my report. The key document, of course, is Appendix 1, which is the revised procedure. We did take the opportunity, as you said, Chair, to review this in the light of updated LGA guidance. And what we found was, I think, our current procedure is a little ambiguous in a sense. I have to say it's been very little used over the years, and I shall touch wood when I say that because I'm tempting fate. But looking at it and reviewing it again with fresh eyes in the light of the LGA guidance, there was really a need to make it clearer in terms of the steps for all parties who might need to use that. So that's why you have a clean draft in front of you rather than a track change version. It hasn't substantially changed the process. It's just, I think, particularly the area around investigation was not drawn out in the last process. And so it was unhelpful, I think, to all parties in terms of how that would be applied. I think we have a much better process here for members, but obviously I'll happy to take any questions or views from members on that. This is a matter that is reserved to the Combined Authority. But you will see in that process, certainly the Governance and Audit Committee does have a role should we receive complaints in respect of members. And that really comes, I suppose the initial stage would fall to me in terms of that initial assessment, coupled with our independent member. But should any complaints proceed and either be resolved through informal resolution or need to progress to investigation, they would be reported certainly on informal resolution to this committee for information, and in terms of investigation, a report would be presented to this committee ultimately for your decisions or recommendations to the Combined Authority. So in a sense, it is very much a joint document in terms of that workability between myself and yourselves, with the independent member playing a key role at each of the stages of this as well. So I hope the process is clear. So I won't run through that, but I'm very happy to take any questions the committee might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. And luckily I know Caroline, but usually the introduction to Caroline is when something's gone wrong. So, and I have to say that's not how I got to meet Caroline. So, so it's not. I'm glad it's not always that case. Two observations, if it's okay, Caroline. One is actually some sort of diagram or flowchart that shows the process through this, I think would be quite useful from a member's perspective and from officers and a complainant's perspective. So we understand the process and at what stage each things have been dealt with and how that can be dealt with as a more visual tool. Within the appendix, it talks about criminal investigation as well, and that as part of that process, the mayor and others would be included in that process. How does that sit alongside the mayor's role as leading on policing?
So I suppose this is in terms of the process where we may receive complaints against a member, and that allegation may be suggesting that there's potentially some criminal implication there. I suppose the process as drafted at the moment says the monitoring officer may consult with the mayor. So this is where I suppose that discretion comes in as to whether it is appropriate or not to do so. Clearly, I suppose if it was the mayor that was the subject of the complaint, and there was a suggestion of criminal activity, then that would have to be addressed in the way I approach that, recognising that the fact that the mayor does have that role as well. So I think that's the process. You'll see quite a lot of maze in there because it's a complaint. Spectrum of complaints that you can receive can be very, very different, and so the process needs to have that flexibility to apply it pragmatically. But I think with the hope that having the independent member
sitting there as part of that process, you've got that, you've got that sort of objective balance always sitting in there alongside the monitoring officer.
Yeah, I think I raise it as I would hate for the mayor, whoever that may be now and in future, to be put in a position where there's a conflict, or they're put in a difficult position as leading on policing, but also leading on things in terms of the council and the complaints procedure as well. It's an awkward position to be in. I think the May is useful, and the discretion of monitoring officers, and knowing the experience of monitoring officers, that would be dealt with accordingly. But I just flag it as something to be mindful of.
Yes, helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. If the combined authority gets a complaint, who deals with it? Because in local authorities we have a standards committee, which is separate to corporate governance and audit committee. The roles are very, very different.
Councillor Pandor, we've actually combined the roles together. So governance, although you wouldn't know it from the name governance and audit, perhaps it does form that function of a local authority as a standards committee as well. It sits there within its terms of reference.
Yeah, so maybe we might want to just review that, because you need to keep the two roles very, very separate. I think it goes to Councillor Robinson's point. Hopefully, we will never get there, and we've got a lot fewer members. But just I might be prudent to actually keep them two separately. I'm not saying do it straight away, but just need to look at it because, especially when you got I think in local authority we have an independent chair that chairs the standards committee. You might want to just you might not want to answer now, but just need to look at that. I think
it's a fair challenge, and I think it's something we will keep under review. I mean, as I say, and I really am tempting fate now. Compared to local authorities, we do not have a lot of activity, if any, at the moment in this space, whereas I know from local councils, standards committees can be kept quite busy. I think our profile has changed now, becoming a mayoral combined authority. I think if that started to change, we would need to review that and look at alternatives.
I'm not saying do it straight away, but and I did make the point that we've got far fewer members and yeah,
understood. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll never get there, but just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I think that's a fair challenge. I have read the guidance, and the process does align with the guidance, and I think that I have a feeling that a lot of this will be an iterative learning process, and we'll see revisions coming out as a result of internal learning as well as external learning, which will probably affect the main guidance. That's, I imagine, where it will go. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Sorry, did you want to come back, Councillor Pandor?
No, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No more comments. No, okay. So the recommendation is for the committee to endorse the revised procedure and to recommend it for approval to the combined authority. Are we saying that we approve it as is, or are we approving it with the addition of the flow chart? Do we want the flow chart adding to that? Is that possible to add it? Is that, yeah?
Yes, we can certainly do that.
Okay, so if we say we're approving it with the addition of the flow charts in, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, the final agenda item, agenda item 10, is the assurance framework review. The combined authority is required to review the local assurance framework annually. This is the first annual review since the local authority framework was updated to comply with changes arising from the West Yorkshire devolution deal. The key changes to the assurance framework are listed at item 2.6 in the paper. Craig, is there anything that you would like to draw members' attention to?
Hi there. Hi, it's Craig Taylor, Head of Portfolio Management and Appraisal. If I could, well, probably if I just give a couple of minutes or two briefing of exactly where we've got to. So, as you will hopefully all know, that we have to do a review of the assurance framework every year, as required by government, and they send out guidance every year to allow us to do that. Last year we had a wholesale review of the whole assurance framework, bigger than what the guidance just asked us to do. We had a complete look at how we do assurance throughout the combined authority, and then we did that in that was on the basis of the feedback we'd got back from colleagues in the CA and also partner districts. However, this year, because we're still embedding the changes that we made last year in particular, and also because the guidance from government this year is very minor, we've made very little difference to the assurance framework. We've just basically tidied it up a little bit. Just also to note that after we got it approved last year, there has been 2 amendments to the assurance framework, just so people are aware of that. And the 2 amendments, one was because of the mayor starting in post in May, because we could cover that in the February update. And then secondly, because of the committee structure arrangement changes, we did another update as well around October time to embed those. So as I said, the guidance this year from government has been very minimal. So therefore the changes that we've made are also very minimal. And to help councillors and members of this committee, we've sent a copy of the assurance framework with track changes in it, so it highlights all the changes that we've actually made, which, as I said, are very few. And then I suppose really, I'm just going to mention roughly the changes that we have made. And there's only 4 or 5 really. Again, we've made updates due to the mayor being in post. We've made updates because we've now got a West Yorkshire investment strategy, so we needed to relate to that. Again, we've made further changes to the committee structure because there were some slight changes from prior update. And there's also been some slight changes with regards committee arrangement to the economic services. Also, we've virtually now got a carbon appraisal tool, which was going to become a part of the assurance framework, which we've added into there. And we've also added a little bit more about value for money. In line with the Green Book guidance, although we've always done this as an authority anyway, but it's given us a bit more scope, not to just look at benefit cost ratios. In the economic case, it allows us to look more at the strategic side of things and use a balance of decision making based on everything that information that we put through the appraisals. And then I've noted down here the Appendix 6, we were going to make a difference because we were getting the UK Shared Prosperity Fund instead of the ESIF SUDS. We aren't actually doing that at the moment because we still haven't got the final information from government about how the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is changed. So we're leaving it as it is at the moment, and we'll probably have to do an update in the next couple of months when we do get that information through from the government. So recommendations would for this committee to provide any feedback on the changes, and also hopefully to endorse the changes that we have made. I suppose the last thing I'll say is that we are going to a number of committees to ask them exactly the same. And in fact, I think you're the first committee that we've been to so far, but we'll be going to others in the next couple of weeks. And finally to the Combined Authority on February the 3rd for them to agree all the changes. That's it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? No? Okay, so the recommendations for the committee to endorse changes that have been made to the local authority framework. So can members just please confirm that they're in agreement? Lovely, thank you. So if you record support the recommendations. Thank you very much for that. Lovely. Thank you. That takes us to the end of the agenda. So if I can draw the meeting to a close, and thank you all very much for your attendance. Thank you.